everybody.
All right, do that again.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see everybody here present at TXRX Labs and also online for the October 2023 Houston Electric Vehicle Association meeting. Good to have you guys. We got a good meeting tonight, I hope. Since I'm the speaker, and I'm also you may recognize that I'm not Dave Hansen, our president, who normally hosts these meetings. Dave is out of town, and he asked me to host a meeting for him, so I was happy to do it. I did do this in the past. I was the president for the Houston Electric Auto Association when we were HEAA for 10 years. So it's good to be up here. We have some announcements. So I guess first page, if you're not a member of the Electric Vehicle Association, we would like you to be and select the Houston chapter as your chapter. You can go to just put Electric Vehicle Association and take you to the website. There's a members section, and
There's a slide coming up for it.
there is a slide for it. Okay. So past events, we had an event at Wings and Wheels. I did not participate, but it sounded like a lot of fun. As soon as I like wings and wheels, both. You'll see in my presentation. Anybody there? Colin, you were there? You want to say anything into the microphone about the meet?
It was at the 1940 air terminal, which is at Hobby. And they had one speaker, one presenter who was the first woman to fly a 747. And her story was very interesting. It's a great story. She wrote a book, and that's what that bottom presentation is. We had we had about 10 cars off and on, and lots of you could actually walk out onto the runway, which I'm not sure I've ever done that before. I'm sure you have, but yeah, it was good. And then we had another event. That one you did go to.
I did go to it. National Drive Electric Week at IKEA. Been doing this event for many years. IKEA is very generous to let us use their pad in front of the building and also parking spots. We had about 20 vehicles, would you say? We had 20 vehicles. There's Ken Chandler's little Sprite sitting there. We had Lucids. We had Polestar. We had
59
Bolts.
Sprites.
We had the 59 Sprite. We had Emma with her Hyundai, right? Hyundai Ioniq with her trailer, and she was actually using her Ioniq to power the tent with all the goodies, and there's a computer and screen there. It was really nice to see vehicle to load being displayed. Teslas, we had a couple of Teslas. We had Colin still got his Roadster back, so we brought the Roadster out. It's really cool to see a vehicle that's been fixed up and is still going. What year is that Roadster? 2010?
2010.
2010 Roadster. So that's great. Any other cars that, let's see, Nissan Ariya was kind of interesting vehicle. Anything else? What else was there? There was an i4 there for a little bit. Yeah, it's a nice car. My brother-in-law has one of those. They're real nice. Really competitive price point too. You would think a BMW would be expensive, but they're competitive with the Model 3. Anything else about that event?
This Dave made a presentation to the Fort Bend County library system. They asked for a presentation on EVs, which we get occasionally, and Dave took that on and did a presentation for them online. We will do it if anybody is interested. We will make a presentation. And this is coming up.
Emma, you want to talk a little bit about the open house at Johnson State Center?
Sure, yeah. So this is the first open house they've had in 5 years, I think. They used to do this every fall until 2018. But please come out and see what we're doing at Johnson Space Center. It's this Saturday. You see the times up there, 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And we're actually, a few of us are going to have our EVs there because Johnson Space Center recently installed level 2 chargers. They're currently only available to use by the JSC fleet PHEVs. They only have PHEVs at this point. While the center is working with headquarters on what they're going to charge personal vehicles to charge, but so they're not currently available for us to use. But anyway, we're just kind of featuring them as part of the open house. And so we'll have I think 4 EVs there.
Okay.
But
And where are they located, Emma?
So where will the EVs be located?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if people are familiar with the Johnson Space Center, but when you enter in, it's free. It's a free activity too, and bring your family. But when you enter in, they'll give you a map. We're in next to what's called Building 2, which is also called the Teague Auditorium. We're in a parking lot that's just outside of that building. So it's actually next to Building 1, which is the main building where the big managers are. And so it's right next to that building. So hopefully, yeah, if you want to bring your family and young kids, I'm sure we'll be interested in, and even adults.
This is not the entrance to Space Center Houston, right?
No,
it's
to Johnson Space
Johnson
Center.
Space Center. So
Right.
if you've been down there before, just put in Johnson Space Center and that'll take you to the right entrance.
Good point. Thank
Sounds
you.
like fun.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring this up again because Electrify Expo in Austin coming up in November, they're claiming that some of the cars will be able to get on the Circuit of the Americas track. Now, so that probably means that you got to get there early and sign up with Mercedes or whoever else is there. There's this last VW was there. I believe Polestar, there's this BMW, and there's and some motorcycles too. Plus all kinds of bicycles, scooters. They're not letting them on the track, I hope, but and they claim, I just got an email recently that there is a big surprise coming and they can't tell you what it is. So yeah, I don't know what the heck that is, but it's
Might be a Cybertruck.
And anybody that's going to send us an email where we may put together something, who knows?
Is it, do you know if they're going to be gas vehicles running on the track also, or just EVs? Do you know?
In the past, they had like McLaren Day, so those guys were going around the track, and I assume that they're not. That may be the only reason that they got it was because they didn't have an event. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that would be good because it was noisy. The gas cars are noisy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, December social. As many of you know, we don't have a meeting here at TXRX in December. We get together for dinner, and we were thinking about doing it again at Cat's Deli at 5930 Westheimer Road, which is farther out west of the older Cat's Deli, which is closer to the Loop 610. The question is December 14th or December 17th. From what I understand, Dave is unable to make it the 14th. I don't have a preference. Maybe we can honor him by having it on the 17th so he can participate. But are there any preferences either way on the 14th or the 17th for December social for the HEVA? And if you're online and you have an opinion, please let us know. Just unmute and tell us. Anybody? So the 14th is a Friday and the 17th is a Sunday. 14th is Thursday. Sorry. Yep. Thursday. Yep. And 17th.
Vote by sending us an email.
Yeah, that's a good idea. If you got a preference, please let us know and we'll make an announcement about it when the tally is in. All right. The only reason that you guys are going to see, no, I get to speak this month, but we're always looking for speakers. So either you can speak, or if you can find somebody that can speak, that's wanting to give a nice talk on something like EV apps, we'd love to hear from you. Just send an email to houstoneva@gmail.com with your ideas, and we'll certainly put you on the calendar. It does have to be electric vehicle or the stuff that powers electric vehicles for the most part. That's what we want to be talking about, but we're open to ideas. All right. One of our members, Mark Clausen, is selling his 2021 Nissan Leaf SV Plus. If you're interested in a very nice, clean 2021 Nissan Leaf SV Plus, it's the one with a big battery in it. I think it's got the driver enhancement packages as well. So if you're interested in that vehicle, please email us. I'm going to talk about a couple of sites. He's actually has it listed on one of the sites later on in the presentation, but we know that folks are looking for EVs, and so if you're interested, here's one. And here's the slide for joining the Electric Vehicle Association. Or wait a minute. Nope.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. So there's actually all kinds of services that the Electric Vehicle Association, which is an international organization, has. There's access to low interest EV loans, health reports of your EV battery, different charging cards that allow you to get a better deal on charging. The local chapter, in Houston, get a portion of the dues that you give, and that helps us run events like National Drive Electric Week and the Wings and
Electric
Wheels
Earth Day.
participate in what was
Electric Earth Day.
Electric Earth Day. So we buy banners and signs, and so that helps us do those events. All right. There's a one sheet here did you print these up, or were they
No.
given to us through National Drive Electric Week? We still have some copies of the one sheet So if you're interested in one of those, you guys that are here, please go ahead and grab one. There's a benefit of coming to the meeting. Coming to TXRX Labs.
Mhm.
All right. What's next, Colin? Colin is running the slides for me. All right.
Now it's your turn.
All right, it's my turn. So let's see here. I'm going to. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my screen and share. And that. All right, hopefully that's up on the board. Cool. What do I need to do to make it fit up there a little better?
We try this.
There we go. All right, electric aircraft. So I'm going to talk about electric aircraft. So I'm sitting here talking and people are going to think of things. They're going to have thoughts, comments, questions. These always go really good if folks just speak up, raise your hand. Colin will be looking for chats. We'll address questions, and if we address answers, and then later on I'm talking about it in a screen later on, we'll just skip that screen. Let's see. There we go. My name's Kevin Douglas. I'm an airline pilot for one of the major U.S. airlines. I've been flying since 1985, over 38 years. I have over 24,000 hours of flight experience. I own a Pipistrel Taurus Electro G2.5 electric and solar powered glider. I'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm married, have 2 grown children and 2 grandchildren. And let's see, I've been a member of the HEVA since 2000, I think maybe 1998. So been enjoying this group for a long time. Been interested in electric flight since the early 2000s, probably around the same time I started getting interested in EVs. Obviously EVs in the late 90s, 98, 99 in there, and then electric flight, probably perusing the internet about electric stuff and ran into electric flight. And in about 2013, the Pipistrel Taurus Electro came out. I saw it and I wanted one. So before I talk about that, here's something exciting in electric aircraft. World speed record for electric aircraft, 345 miles per hour. Electrics have plenty of power. You will continue to see records for speed and endurance in electric aircraft. That's something that makes it very exciting. And I'll talk a little bit about this, but you know, that it's one thing to build a very specific one-off aircraft or even a vehicle that will have incredible performance. It's another thing to build something that will eventually become commercially viable. So we'll talk a little bit about that in our presentation. Here's an interesting aircraft, the Harbor Air EVA. It's an electric Beaver. The aircraft is 1940s vintage originally, on floats, very popular in the Great Northwest up in Alaska. And I'll talk a little bit about Harbor Air in this presentation. And there's the Pipistrel Taurus Electro, side-by-side 2-seat. You can see the pedestal behind the cockpit, really behind the wing, and there's an electric motor swinging a prop. And when you get up to altitude, you fold the pedestal down into the fuselage. The propeller stops, aligns itself with the opening, and then you stow it, and it's now a glider. and it has a pretty decent glide ratio, about 40-1. And it's a lot of fun. And then one of the many, I put this picture up there, Alia by Beta Technologies of Vermont. Vertical takeoff and landing, transition to forward flight, shuttle, cargo, people movers, ride share, the reconnaissance, the business is very there's just a wide interest in using electric flight for many purposes. I'll probably say it again in this slideshow, but there's 250 companies around the world working on electric flight, either working on aircraft or working on the technologies behind them. There's I think it's $500 billion of capital investment in it. It's a real deal.
Including like Boeing.
Boeing, Airbus, all the big players. Yep. John, sweet. Microphone maybe? Or I can repeat it. Go ahead. Not standard yet. Not standard. In North America, using the well, there's lower power J1772s and then higher power joint CCS charger. In Europe, there's a totally different connector. No Tesla connectors yet, but not standardized. But it'll come. And then, of course, when are we gonna fly across the globe electrically? So we'll talk a little bit about that. So it's really about the energy, specifically specific energy in the batteries. It's how much energy per weight can I have in a battery, and how much volume does that battery take up? The 2011 Nissan Leaf that I had, Bill has a 12. What year is yours? An 11. 2011 Nissan Leaf had about 24 kilowatt hours in it. It sat under the floor and partially up the back seat. The 2017, 6 years later, Chevrolet Bolt EV that I got had 62 kilowatt hours in it. So almost 3 times the energy in the same space and weight. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Electric motors, as we saw in that first slide, there's plenty of power, and batteries are powerful too. And we have members that are in the National Electric Drag Racing Association that are electric vehicles are doing 7-second quarter miles already. A lot of power, several thousand horsepower. So power is not the problem, it's energy. All right. A lot of little print in this. Did you have a pointer? Or or can you guys see my mouse? You can see my mouse. All right. Green is good, red is bad. But really what I want to show you is this is where lithium batteries are in megajoules per kilogram. It's just one way of measuring energy per weight. This is where diesel, gasoline, and kerosene are, which are the fuels that fuel aircraft today. So the further up you go on this graph, the better it is from the standpoint of specific energy. And that's really what we're interested in. How much energy can we stuff in the package? Aviation fuel have a usable energy by weight of around 4,000 watt hours per kilogram. They really have about 12,000 watt hours per kilogram, but you can only use about 30% of that energy because the rest of it you have to dissipate in thermal management, because if not, it's a blowtorch, and a blowtorch burns through steel, any material. So, well, maybe not the space shuttle tiles, but you can't make affordable engines out of space shuttle tiles and those materials. Lithium ion batteries have an energy by weight today of around 250 watt hours per kilogram. Aviation fuel has around 16 times the amount of energy per unit weight that lithium batteries have. I'm going to start off like a Debbie Downer in this presentation, but we're going to get a little better. But it's, it is a very large challenge to overcome the amount of energy that's in liquid fuels. Yes, Bill.
I flew recently, I had a pilot, what is the volumetric TPM of the jet fuel for a 2-engine aircraft? It was about, if I remember correctly, 4 cubic meters per second. And, probably do the math. I thought that was pretty bizarre, that propels this, large aircraft, 600 miles per hour. And altitude.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that, a typical 4-seat aircraft is going to have about 40 gallons of fuel on it, maybe 20 to 40, 30 to 40 gallons. An airliner, something like a 737 carrying 150 people is going to have 5,000 gallons of fuel on it. 777 wide body going 8 hours across the Atlantic or Pacific, or 11 hours, 16 hours, 50,000 gallons of fuel. So, that it's just a big challenge. The largest airliner, the Airbus A380, can fly 500 people for 16 hours on its fuel load. That's about 8,000 miles. If that aircraft had batteries for fuel based on weight, it would be able to fly about, I didn't finish my slide, but divide your, your miles by 16. So let's see what that comes out to. 8,000 divided by 16. It's about 500 miles. So that's not insurmountable. It's not economic, but it's not insurmountable. So I'm going to talk a little bit about pipistrel. And the reason I'm going to talk about pipistrel is because, as you'll see, Pipistrel Aircraft, which is a Slovenian company, they are one of the leaders in electric aircraft development certification. And I'll talk a little bit about certification. That's one of the challenges. They started building electric airplanes, started building aircraft in the 80s. They built little hang gliders with a little propeller on the back. They're called trikes. They started building electric aircraft about 20 years later in the 2000s. My Taurus is a 2018. It's a second generation of the Taurus. The Taurus was originally built in announced in 2011. I think the first ones came out in 2013, and they updated it. Just some numbers. The weight of the battery pack in the Taurus is 130 pounds, and it holds 9.2 kilowatt hours of energy. you don't use all of the energy in a battery pack. You don't do it in your car. I mean, you can, but you run out of juice on an aircraft. You certainly don't, because you would like to have energy when you get to your destination, and your battery also gets stressed, and it shows up in heat. The Pipistrel, this Pipistrel has about 7.4 kilowatt hours of usable energy for flight. Not very much. Think about, most EVs today are anywhere from 65 to 100 kilowatt hours in an electric vehicle today. So not very much. That with that energy, though, a very efficient aircraft like the Pipistrel Taurus, which is made out of carbon fiber, it's very clean aerodynamically. It's a glider, has very long wings, very low aspect ratio, very low drag. You can take off and you can fly about 30 minutes. All right. The Taurus. It is the battery. I wanted to point out about technology progression, just like I did with the Nissan Leaf and the Bolt. The battery on the Taurus is from about 2013. It's about 10 years old is that technology. And with a weight of 59 kilograms and 9.2 kilowatt hours of energy, the energy density of the battery is around 155 watt hours per kilogram. If you remember, today, lithium-ion batteries are doing about 250. I've got 255 up there. So they're 65% better in this decade. And these are aircraft batteries. They have to be a little more conservative on the power and energy density in aircraft for thermal management. If you put a 255 watt hour per kilogram battery in the Pipistrel today, instead of it having 9.2 kilowatt hours of energy in that battery, it would have 15 kilowatt hours. And instead of flying for 30 minutes after takeoff, you could fly for an hour. So you could fly twice as long. So the idea behind this slide is we do have progress going on. We see it in the cars and we can see it in the aircraft as well. All right, now I'm going to talk about the regulatory process. It takes the FAA 5 to 9 years to do an aircraft type certificate. All right, so when you have an airplane and you're going to sell it for commercial use to carry people, to carry cargo, it has to have what's called a type certificate. One of the things that I hope I impart in this talk is that we're not just talking about technological barriers. With aviation, we're also talking about regulatory barriers. And the regulatory environment in aviation has been developed over 100 years. And it's quite, in some ways, archaic. And because of the nature of resisting risk, it takes a lot to change it. So that 5 to 9 years is a certification under an existing certification guidelines, the existing certification. So like I said, we've been developing these guidelines for 100 years. You want to build another aluminum airplane that has an internal combustion 4-piston engine that's already been approved it's already has its own certificate, using aviation gasoline, 5 to 9 years to get it certified. So a development period of a company from idea to development of 5 years. before they start the certification process, another 5 to 9 years. So you're looking at 10 to 15 years for a certification process. Time is money. And so we're not just talking about a delay. We're talking about engineers and all kinds of resources being paid during all this time to get these things done. Electric aircraft certification guidelines, I put relatively new to aviation, but they're being developed. They are in their infancy. They're let me see what I wrote here. Okay, so we have some certificated aircraft already in the world. Pipistrel has a couple of them, and By Aerospace is working on one here. The thing about Pipistrel is their aircraft are certificated in Europe, Japan, Australia. They're not certificated in the US. We have agreements, global agreements that allow for if you certify an aircraft under the FAA rules, you go to the European certification agency, IATA, and they will fast track the certification of that aircraft. They won't make you redo the certification, because there are international agreements that say, you know what, we know that the FAA process is very robust and it's similar to ours, if not identical. And so therefore we know that if it's passed in the US, it's going to pass in our country. Russia and China also have their own regulatory agencies. Matter of fact, all countries that have aviation have some type of regulation for whatever they're doing, whether it's training of pilots, operation of aircraft. If they're making aircraft in that country, they have a regulatory environment for the certification of those aircraft. And then those have to be, if they're sold, you'll see that, for example, China has certified airliners, but they're not flying outside of China because we haven't got the agreements with China for doing that. That's something that, you know, is in the process of being done, but it takes a lot of time. So one of the examples of delay of certification. So in Europe, Pipistrel was able to be the first to get a type certificate in the what's called the light sport aircraft category. Light sport is your little Cessna, 2-passenger, weighs about 1,300 pounds, has about no more than 120 horsepower engine. It's just used for training and enjoyment, flight hobby work. So Pipistrel got certification in Europe. IATA certification in Europe of an aircraft they call the Velis, and I'll show you guys a picture. Let me show you. Where do I have? There's the Velis. So this airplane, high wing, tricycle gear. I think the horsepower of the engine is, the motor is 70 horsepower. It's 55 kilowatts of power. It'll fly for about 50 minutes plus what they call reserve. So 50 plus 30. So an hour and 20 minutes. Charge, you know, a typical aircraft is made to fly training flights. People can rent them and go out, fly around. So they got this certified in Europe. And remember, I told you that we have agreements between IATA and the FAA, and so for the most part, this aircraft would have come over to the U.S. It would have gone under U.S. certification, and they would have basically taken maybe a year to make sure that it met all the requirements, which they already know, and they would have certified it. The problem is it has an electric motor, has an electric power plant. And the light sport rule that was written in the early 2000s in the United States says in its definition that a light sport aircraft shall be powered by a single reciprocating engine. The United States is the only country to have done that. They did it because they didn't want people putting turbine engines in light sport aircraft. They felt the turbine engine had power, too much power. And so they wanted people to use simple piston engines. They put out a notice of proposed rulemaking when they do these, and there were several people that said electric flight's coming. Can we not have reciprocating engine in the ruling? The ruling came out, reciprocating engine. This fellas came out in 2018. Pipistrel tried to get the FAA. They actually had an aircraft before this aircraft called the Alpha Electro. It was not certificated, but they started working on certification across the agencies, and they worked with the FAA and started a petition, them and several others. And so the FAA put that under review. These reviews take 6 years. So 2018, 2023, this summer, the FAA finally announced a notice of proposed rulemaking, which is going to allow electric power plants in light sport aircraft. So there's a 5-year delay right there. If you can imagine people that are investing lots of capital in companies where they're paying a lot of engineers and everybody else, business people and everybody else, to have to wait for 5 years when you have capital expenditures in the millions of dollars, it puts a delay on things. So I just did that. I wanted to show you how, from a timeline perspective, we see some wonderful things that are done in aviation and car racing and other things that are done one-offs to break records, but it's another ball game to get that put into production. I wanted to talk about some impressive experiment work. This aircraft, the Pipistrel Taurus G4, was the first 4-seat electric powered aircraft to carry 4 people 200 miles at 100 miles an hour. And it was part of a NASA challenge, and they won the challenge. And at the time, it was the most efficient powered aircraft made. They basically took, as you can see from the picture, 2 Taurus fuselages, and they put a center section. Instead of having this, you can see either the left or the right wing would go on the side of the fuselage. They put a center section with a large motor and a battery pack in the center section, and there's a battery pack in each fuselage. So they won the NASA Green Flight Challenge. Let's see if I can move. Let me see here. That. Okay. All right. Where are we now? 2 seats. Fly about 60 miles an hour, 60 knots. Cruise at about 60 knots, 70, 75 miles an hour for about 30 minutes. Fold the motor up, take off, fold the motor up. I've done 200-mile flights in that glider, powered by the sun. Talk about that. So it's soaring air. It's a soaring airplane, carries 2 people. Take off, climb to 2,000, get in a thermal, go 200 miles thermaling, 70 miles an hour. So around 35 miles of electric powered range. So that's an aircraft that in Europe, that aircraft is certificated under microlights, which are less than 1,100 pounds of weight. Some of these hang gliders, powered hang gliders, are microlights. There's a small class of airplanes that are called microlights. That Pipistrel, you can buy a trailer that has solar panels on it, and it has a battery in it, and it has inverter in it, so that if you want to go flying someplace that you don't have electricity, you can tow your glider to that site, pull it out of the trailer, unfold it, put the wings on, the tail on, and the battery's charged up. And while you're flying, doing your soaring, the battery in the trailer charges up with the solar panels. And when you get done with your flight, you come back, you land, you park next to your trailer, you plug your aircraft into the battery on the trailer, charge your aircraft up, and you can fly again the next day. So, just on a little side note, so that's electric generated solar power. How do you go 200 miles without power, without electric power? Well, if you have boiled water and you got a pot of water and you put fire under it, the sun hits the earth warms up the air. Think of the earth, the hot earth that's heated from the sun, heating up the water, it's heating the air. And you start forming bubbles, and those bubbles rise to the top. And that's what a thermal is. You get air that's heated by the earth, and it moves up through cooler air in the form of a big bubble. And you get in that big bubble in an airplane that can fly slow enough, fly about 40 miles an hour. You can get in the bubble and stay in the bubble, and the bubble rises and you go up with the bubble. And you get out at the base of the clouds. When you see these clouds, you can, that's normally where the top of the thermal is. You get out of that thermal and you go to you fly cross country to the next one and do it again. So that's soaring, but that's for another lecture. But I just thought it would be interesting for folks that Bill has a statement about stored solar energy would be oil and gas, right? Fossil fuels. Recent solar energy is wind, right? And then ancient. Thank you. Right. So anciently stored as fossil fuels, recently stored as wind, right? You get this, the earth has heating and it moves air masses and you get wind, and then instantaneously generated like solar power is solar panels, and we store it in batteries. So there's the Velis. I talked about that. That plane carries 2 people, 50 minutes, 30 minutes of reserve. It's for flight training and personal flying. You can do 10 or so traffic patterns in it. You can fly out to a practice area, do maneuvers needed for a pilot license. You can fly 100 miles cross country, then charge for 2 hours or so. That's where that airplane is. That airplane, they still talk about doing improvements to the thermal management, the cooling of the batteries and so forth to shorten the charging time. The battery size in that, whereas the Taurus has a 9.2 kilowatt hour battery, this one has a 24.5 kilowatt hour battery. So it's a little more than twice its size. And it's the first aircraft to be certified in the world.
I understand that. One of the reasons they love training is because you're so cheap to maintain.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't put it in here, but a typical two-seat gas powered airplane is burning somewhere around 5 gallons an hour. So, and aviation fuel's about $5, so about $25 an hour. The thing is, though, that the maintenance on oil changes and everything associated with fuel and everything else is quite high. So your cost of operating that airplane is really just for fuel and maintenance is more around $50 to $60 an hour. An electric aircraft is using about in that environment an average of about 10 kilowatts in a pattern of power. So you know, you're going to use, well, you use 20, let's say you used about 20 kilowatt hours times, let's say 10 cents a kilowatt hour is $2. $2 an hour. And the maintenance is zero. There's no oil changes, just like on a vehicle. So the cost of operation for businesses in flight training, because the mission is short, you know, you're only going to train for about 30 minutes to 45, maybe an hour. And then you're going to do a change to the next student. This technology is actually fitting that mission now. And so you see aircraft that are already fulfilling that. There's people that are ordering these aircraft. So I talk about here again, I wanted to make the point that, you know, it's not just about technology, although technology, it's really about the specific energy in the battery, the watt hours per kilogram, the regulatory process and certification, how long it takes for the regulatory agencies to complete new certification pathways is a big part of that timeline. But I had this old friend from Tennessee, and they always have these nice little sayings, and he used to say, inch by inch it's a cinch, and yard by yard it's too hard. So inch by inch, there's capital behind it, humanity is behind it. We're moving towards sustainability, and so it's happening. So Vie Aerospace, they're a company out of Colorado. I've told you about Light Sport. So Light Sport is you know, a two-seat aircraft, again, less than 1,300 pounds. They decided to be the first to certify an aircraft in the normal category. So they don't have the small, the weight requirement, the weight limitation, and they also don't have other pilot training limitations. This is normal category is what a normal private pilot would fly, private pilot or higher. It's a more restrictive ruling in many ways, except because it's an older ruling, it actually doesn't have anything about electric power. So there is no restriction in the normal category ruling for an electric powered aircraft. So they said, okay, we'll just certify it under the normal category. Much more capital involved. It's kind of like, crash testing a motorcycle, a three-wheeler, and crash testing a full-blown car, or the low-speed EVs, the 35-mile-an-hour restricted EVs versus not a low-speed car. So, they're trying to go the north. They are doing it. They're pressing through. The FAA has approved their methodology for certification, which is a big step. It's also going to be for flight instruction and pleasure flying. The application process was started in 2018. That's when they filed the process. Okay. They just now got approval for their methodology 5 years later. It's probably going to be 3 to 5 more years in certification for them to get this aircraft certified. The idea started in the early 2000s, somewhere around 2003. So 13 years if it gets sold to customers. They already have 340 customers waiting for these aircraft, flight training schools primarily. There was a company out of California that was going to do a little shuttle service for folks where you could carry, if you've ever heard of charters where you can charter an airplane, you would just carry one person. By the way, the first airline in the history of the world was from St. Petersburg, Florida to Tampa across the bay in a float plane. It had one pilot and one passenger, and they lasted 6 months. Yes, Bill.
I just heard that somebody using drone unmanned aircraft big time in warfare. I'm wondering whether you have some comments about the certification process for those.
Yeah. So the military obviously has an advantage of not having to, they're not selling services. And so our laws, when you're in an environment where you want to make sure you can defend yourself from attack, you basically use the best technology you can get to stay ahead of those that might want to harm you. And our psyche is, as humans, is very, we promote that. We're very, we have phenomenal budgets for that. When we're talking about selling services, carrying people or cargo over populated areas, that's a totally different deal. Totally different deal. It's in a whole different section of the law. As a matter of fact, the military has whole airspace areas that are not over, high density populations. They fly, and they'll even fly some of these drones that are, by the way, the size, they have the wingspan of a 737. The Global Hawk is this massive 60,000-pound single engine jet reconnaissance drone that can fly from the United States to anywhere in the world. And they do. And they fly, there's also airspaces that are above, like if you fly over 60,000 feet, you can pretty much go direct. So, but they don't have a person in there. And that's something to mention, by the way. One thing is to build an aircraft that is non-piloted, doesn't have, so you don't have to support the life support that an aircraft with people in it has. So that's a different engine. That is a different engineering project. Right.
What's the question?
The question is, if you train an electric aircraft, do you need an endorsement for operating a gasoline engine? The answer is no. There is no endorsement for operating a gasoline engine. I can tell you that that of course is something that will be resolved. A lot of times, you may have a pilot's license and you may be single engine rated, but if you buy an aircraft, they're going to train you on how to operate it. If you go rent an aircraft, they're going to give you a checkout before they rent you the aircraft. And so that kind of training, but in the regulations, there isn't a sign off for different power plant sources. All right. So that bi-aerospace airplane carried 2 people for 2 hours, 120 miles an hour. I always, you know, when not all the information is out there, like battery size, for example, and a lot of times companies won't give out their suppliers, right? They want to stay competitive. They won't tell you what kind of batteries they have, but they'll tell you how big the battery is. They'll tell you, you know, what the aircraft can do. This company hasn't released that information yet. I think partly because they're still in the certification process and they're still open to the technological improvements of battery systems. And so it is advantageous to them to put off getting put into a certain battery until they have to. And so they'll go through testing and they'll make their decision a few years from certification, a couple of years, whatever their time is, and then they'll announce it. Well, I won't. All right, Harbor Air eBeaver. This is I was really excited about this company. They are a float plane company out of Canada, out of Vancouver. They fly all over, out of Vancouver, all over the islands out there, up all the waterways, short flights, 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, really low altitude, 6 people in the Beaver. They have otters, which are bigger, and twin otters, which are even bigger, 12 people and 19 people. But their idea was, let's convert a Beaver, which has a 1940s technology radial engine that has a huge fuel and oil and maintenance consumption. I think that airplane burns like 30 gallons an hour. It uses about a gallon of oil an hour because the old radial technology, just a lot of slop in the engine, a lot of lubrication getting wasted. It's amazing how good material sciences have gotten in engines. And so their idea was, we're not going to build a new airplane. We're not going to go through the process of an entire certification. We're going to get what's called a supplemental type certificate. We're just going to change the engine on this existing aircraft. Sounds like a good idea. And so they started working on this project. They built one, flew it. They've been flying it. It's been doing a lot of flight testing. Their partner for the motor is a company called MagniX, which is a US company that's building 650 horsepower electric motors, big, powerful electric motors. But the certification process is been extremely difficult. There is no path. Yes, they're doing a supplemental type certificate, but there is no path to certification of an electric motor yet. And so the Canadian government is working with them do it, but it's taking longer than they thought. They thought that they would, you know, on a normal STC, maybe 2 years to get it done. They started working on this 2017. They were talking about maybe carrying people in 2020. Now they're building the second version of the aircraft. They've got another one that they're they learned a whole bunch from the first one. They're building it. It'll be done late next year. So late 24, they've announced passenger service maybe in 25. It's going to be a while. I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, because I do believe in electric flight, and I do believe electric flight is happening. It's going to happen better and better. It just takes a long time. It takes a lot of capital investment. It takes a lot of time, because it's very regulated for safety. So, timeline using specific energy, watt hours per kilogram. What might we expect to see? Can you guys see that this is specific energy over here? Here we are right in here at about 250. And as we go through, this is actually showing 400 by maybe 2027, showing 450 maybe by 26 to 2030, showing 600 by 2040. So we're almost tripling the energy. And then the line kind of takes off, because they're estimating that new battery technologies like lithium sulfur air will be coming into place, which are going to change the slope of the curve. I do want to tell you that technology normally comes in small increments and improvements. It's rare that you see a silver bullet that changes things in a short period of time. I think in oil and gas, a good example would be fracking. Fracking changed oil and gas production for sure. And it definitely moved the needle pretty quickly. But it still took, and there's folks on this Zoom and in this room that know better than me, but I think it still took a couple of decades to do. So this gray area here, if you can't see it, is solid state batteries. Everybody talks about solid state batteries, looking like, you know, that'll be coming at the end of this decade to the from 30 to 40. So here we are. We're right here in the blue circle. Today, 2-seaters flying 1 hour, 75 miles an hour. And I'm talking about certificated aircraft here. I'm talking about the technology. I'm not talking about one-off experimental technologies. By the end of, and by the way, I think I put in here, maybe I didn't, but maybe it's after this. This is just Kevin's guesses. Just Kevin. So it's just something fun to talk about. End of the decade, 9-seaters flying 1 hour at 150 miles an hour. So commuter, that harbor air, float plane, maybe something without floats, a caravan carrying people around, going to Vegas, go over the Grand Canyon, Hawaii. So, you know, tours, that kind of thing, maybe some shuttle services from one side of a big metropolis to another. There's 2040, 20 passengers flying a couple of hours at 200 miles an hour. We're starting to see that curve going up with lithium sulfur air batteries. I can tell you that, you know, another process of the certification is not just the electric motor, but it's the battery systems. The battery systems have to go through proving thermal management, all that. that they won't have a fire. I wasn't going to bring it up, but the 787, remember it had fires in lithium batteries. And one of the issues that it had was that it had to start the certification process for that lithium battery 11 years before they actually launched the airplane. They actually got locked in to the cells and the battery architecture 11 years before they actually flew the aircraft. Consequently, it had 9 cells. They only monitored for temperature. You know, we know that we should in every cell monitor voltage, amperage, and temperature. On that battery pack, they only monitored temperature on the first cell, the last cell, and one of the cells in the middle. And they had a technology that within a couple of years, I believe it was a manganese cell, within a couple of years, the auto industry got away from it. So they picked it in 2011. By 2013, Nissan and everybody else was getting away from that cell because of thermal issues, and Boeing was locked in. So these battery technologies have to be proven. So wherever you see a change in the technology, add a decade to be used in aircraft. And then, oh, why not? 2050, that's the, 20 something years from now, 30 to 50 passengers, a couple hours at 200 miles an hour, maybe a little bit more than that. True commuter services. When I started flying in the airlines, I flew a 30 passenger twin engine turboprop airplane. Actually, when I started, I flew a 14 passenger twin engine Beech. And it would fly 3 hours, carry 14 people, 3 hours plus reserves. So I could see commuter services doing that. All right. So the above timelines are just my guess. The above timelines are for certificated commercial aircraft. Technology is outpacing the regulatory environment, no doubt about it. And I will tell you that Congress in the United States has already told the regulators, you've got to modernize the process. You've got to modernize the process. You've got to bring our understanding of material sciences and engineering modeling that we have available to us that industries like oil and gas and even aerospace are using. SpaceX is the success of using the tip of technology as opposed to technology that's several decades old, makes a big difference. And so, Congress there's 250 companies with somewhere around $500 billion invested. And these folks are talking to the government and they're saying, we need a faster, leaner, cheaper method to get, and sustainability is pushing it. We have to get better at these timelines if we want to do what we need to do for survival of so that changes aren't drastic. And then I hadn't mentioned it because I've already been talking 2 hours and I'm impressed. I haven't caught anybody sleeping yet, but maybe on the Zoom they are. But hybrid aircraft are being worked on. The idea, if you guys remember, we had NASA talk to us about an aircraft that was going to have electric propulsion, and they're going to have a bunch of propellers along the leading edge of the wing. And so distributed power. Well, one of the things that you could do is have a gas turbine engine. One of the engines that we use to propel air now, use it as a generator. 1 or 2 of those on the aircraft, generating electricity, have a smaller battery system in between, just like a Volt. And then you use the battery to take off. Of course, the generator is pumping energy into the battery. The battery would take off and get down to 50% maybe. And then you would reduce the power consumption for cruise. The generator would keep charging the battery, would get the battery back up, or you don't even do that. You fly, because the gas turbine generator is kerosene, burning kerosene. You deplete the battery down to 50%. You keep the battery at 50%. You run the generator at a lower power level to maintain cruise. And then when you come down, that Velis that I showed you guys, it has a regen in the propeller system. The propeller actually goes into a flat pitch. So when they go around the pattern and they pull the power back, the propeller is free spinning and they actually run some electricity back into the battery, and that's how they recoup a little bit, get a little bit more. You could do that with a hybrid system and put electricity back into the battery. And then when you got it down on land, you could hook it up to shore power, which is the electricity is sourced by renewable sources like solar and wind, and thus reducing your footprint and your cost. Yes, Bill?
I assume that since you have regen that it is an AC motor, is that,
It is.
okay? What, you didn't indicate what kind of DC or AC you have on your aircraft.
It's an AC motor. It's the same. It's a AC synchronous motor,
Okay.
except it's the rotor. It's an outer spinning rotor. The rotor is on the outside part of the motor as opposed to the inside part of the motor. And for you guys, one of you guys might know the proper term for that.
Fuel cells, and then you hear it all, is that an option?
So remember that Pipistrel G4? This airplane? Let's see, that airplane? That airplane, Pipistrel turned around after they won the NASA Green Challenge, and they actually did work with a fuel cell in that aircraft. There have been several. Airbus has done a fuel cell project that I know of. Boeing, I think, also. There have been several, several projects working on fuel cells. As we kind of know from electric vehicles, one of the problems with fuel cells is if you use hydrogen, the hydrogen manufacturing distribution network is non-existent. So you got to build an entire network. I don't know enough about power requirements in that. I've seen some pretty sizable drone aircraft that use fuel cells that have long endurance times using hydrogen, but that's all I know.
Question, is the Lilium commuter aircraft a contender?
Who's the commuter?
Lilium, you heard of them?
Lilium. So the little ducted jet, they're ducted. Is that correct? If you can, who's asking the question?
Awesome.
Mark, if you're talking about Lilium, and let's see, if you can unmute for just a second and say yes.
Yeah, I'm online.
Is it Lilium?
Yeah, Lilium has been working with commuter aircraft and actual setting up of flights in Florida. And but like most that are out there and new to they keep getting delayed further and further. But they do seem like they have a lot of good ideas, and it does seem like they're quite far along in actual flights. So anyway, they're just it's kind of a unique design, but they're just another one of the manufacturers of commuter aircraft, totally electric.
Yeah. I'll show you guys a picture of Lilium here when we go to questions, but um uh, so I had been following Lilium. They had quite a bit of capital behind them, and they were doing some stuff. Things have kind of slowed down. I have not heard many updates on them. So I can't tell you if that technology, it seems like on the drones, on the electric people mobility vehicles. Let me see. Let me do something here. Can I minimize this and pull up a,
You want me to go, find us,
yeah, do, Beta Technologies, but put in Beta Technologies aircraft. I would say that's a good one to show just basically the idea of, and do Lilium aircraft, and then open another window after we'll look at the Lilium and open that picture up.
Sharing these screens. Can't share them all.
You can hit Lilium aircraft.
No, share it to the people online.
Oh, you want me to share?
No, I don't think you can.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's Lilium. It's it has, it's a pilot and 3 people. It has, show.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring it up.
Okay. All right, there it is. It has a bunch of ducted fans on the back of the wing that for vertical flight will point down, just like you see there in the video. And then for forward flight, once it takes off, the ducts start to transition to forward flight, and it actually is pulling the air over the top of the wing, which gives you high speed air on the top of the wing, and of course there's lower high pressure air underneath the wing. It's a good idea. NASA actually has done work with ducted, they call it augmented lift. And so they've done work with ducts. They've done work with the propellers across the air surface. The nice thing about having the duct on the back of the wing is that the air going over the wing is what's called clean. It's very laminar. It's lined up. If you put the propellers on the front of the wing, the air coming off the propellers are like corkscrews going across the wing. So it generates drag, and it's more complicated. The air modeling is more complicated. So Lilium is one of the 250 companies. I would put them, I haven't heard any updates from them, but I would put them in the top 10 probably. Beta Technologies is another company that Beta Technologies aircraft. And that one is called, there you go. And they've got a nice little, you can actually, oh, was that not sharing? Okay. So if you watch, there's the vertical mode where they have these 4 propellers that are pulling up in a vertical mode. They should, on this video, see if you could scroll down, scroll down. Let's see. Well, I thought that the video showed, but you guys can see the propeller on the back. So what this aircraft would do is it would take off in the vertical by swinging those 4 propellers that are above the wing. And then they would start adding power from the back propeller, start propelling the aircraft through the air, generating lift with the wing. And as the wing generated more and more lift, they slow down the propellers above the wing to where they eventually just line them up with those booms to minimize drag. This idea of having propellers that either you use one set of propellers for vertical flight up and down, or you use, and then you have a pusher, or you use propellers that are on some kind of gimbaled structure where the propeller can start off in the horizontal to the earth, so the air vehicle can take off vertically, and then it can transition forward so that it can do forward flight. But having a drone and maybe, let's see, can folks see me? Let me see here.
Not sure what screen I'm sharing.
Here I am. I don't know if you can see me. Do I need to share? No, you're doing it. You are sharing screen.
Am I? I can't tell.
No, mine says you're sharing the screen. So see what the chat. Okay.
See, there, yeah,
Can you see me?
you're up there and
All right. I'm going to show you guys. You take a drone. Think of my hand as a drone, and you got 4 propellers. And so to go up and down, I have this drone, I go up and I go down. If I want to move the drone forward towards my fingers, I need to tilt the drone this way, because the thrust is going like this vertically. And so for me to move forward, I need to tilt the thrust plane so that there's a vector going down and a vector going this way to make the drone move forward. But the problem with that is that the faster I want to move that drone, the more the negative angle of incidence of that drone is to the air. This air is going across here, and I've got this body of this drone that keeps being more and more negative. If I produce something that wants the drone to go down, I got to add more power to offset it with the lift component. Therefore, drones are not good for going long distances. You can put some phenomenal battery systems in them, but when you start carrying people and stuff, that design is not the design that's going to be. It's going to be something that can transition from vertical flight to forward flight using the lift of a wing, using a lifting surface. All right.
Go back to your share of the presentation.
Yeah. Let me that. Let's see. So hybrid aircraft, that was one.
Yeah, you're not sharing. Yeah.
You'll find me. I'm not
Start
sharing.
over.
There it is. All right.
See that because it's on this screen doesn't mean that everybody else is seeing it. That's
Well, I'm sharing.
okay.
So I think we could probably get
Yeah, it says receiving down the
you
screen.
should
Yeah.
be able to see me on well, you're seeing the whole thing. So just a couple of thoughts, and then I got a couple of questions to answer. Robert sent some questions, and then if you guys have more questions, we're going to see some awesome things. We're going to see some fast and faster aircraft. You'll see some supersonic flight. You'll see some incredibly high altitude. There's a glider out there called Perlan that's gone to 78,000 feet. No motor, just using what's called wave. So air that comes in a big air mass goes over a mountain range like the Andes, when it comes back down, you can either catch the wave on this side, or when it comes back down on the backside of the mountain, it hits the earth and bounces back up. And you can get on that wave, and they can ride that wave off the Andes in South America. They've recorded it going up to 150,000 feet. They want to go to 100,000 feet. 100,000 feet in a non-powered aircraft. It's amazing the energy the Earth has. It's phenomenal. So we're going to see phenomenal things. Many companies will start, many companies will fail, many companies will merge. You know, the auto industry was full of car companies at the turn of the century. And then there was 3. And then there was 4. And now there's 10, 15, so happening again, 20. It's really exciting. And that was the US. I mean, globally, we have companies. Sustainable aviation fuels. I didn't talk about them, but the major airlines are really investing in them. If you can make fuel, you take a tree, it grows, absorbs all this carbon, or any plant, and then you take that and you process it as fuel. The carbon is what they call carbon neutral. You release it back in the atmosphere, but it was stored in the tree, as opposed to taking fossil fuels, which are stored carbon over millions of years, and expending that carbon in a century. That's the difference. So if we can do sustainable fuels, biofuels, that's there. And what they're doing is they're just incrementing production, mixing it in, so it's a blend. So you start off with 10%, 20% on small amount of flights, and you keep building that network until you eventually are replacing a large part of the fossil fuel. So that's something that's going to help us with sustainable aviation. Aviation is going to have an electric component, no doubt about it. It's already got it. It will continue to grow. We need to have it. We need to be sustainable. We've got to do everything that we can to be sustainable. And electric propulsion, as we know, is a sustainable solution. And it's not about if, but when, and how long it takes. That's it. So let me, Robert, you've very kindly sent me some questions, and so I'll read these questions and let me see. Robert, I get so many emails. Where is it? All right, here it is. All right. Question number 1. Where do you think we are with regards to EV aviation? Something roughly analogous to the Wright brothers, World War I aircraft? What? I think it is beyond the Wright brothers, Robert says. Governmental agencies, NASA, the military, universities, and private firms are currently designing and developing and even manufacturing EV aircraft. I will tell you, the Wright brothers first flew in 1903, and there were very few people that knew about it until 1908. In 1908, they did a world tour. And by that time, they weren't just flying 300 feet. They were actually flying for about 20 minutes over pastures, just doing circles over pastures. And people were totally amazed. 1908, World War I breaks out in 14, I think. By the end of World War I, we have triplanes, biplanes. We're starting to talk about two engine aircraft. I think were in that period between 1908 and 1914. I think that when we get past World War I, will be the first airline flew in 23. I think when you start seeing commercial carriage of people in electric aircraft, so you're already seeing it in flight training. Maybe we're in World War I. All right, let's see. And you're absolutely right. Everybody's investing capital into it. While one can't break the laws of physics, heavy battery, lower energy density, and fossil fuel aircraft, no loss of weight after discharge, etc., can engineers and designers bend the laws of physics or seek loopholes in the form of lighter aircraft, carbon fiber, lighter, more energy dense batteries, perhaps micro solar panels, or even micro wind turbines to generate electricity. Radical designs and can make the most of gliding or micro sails to catch the free ride on the wind. Robert, I am not a believer in bending physics. I do believe that man is innovative. We think outside the box. We have great thinkers. I think Elon Musk is a great thinker. I think many of the people that he attracts are great thinkers. He's not the only one. Bezos, there's many of them. Look at the way the world has changed in our lifetime in just the last 2 decades. It's phenomenal. I mean, we hold in our hands more, this used to be when cell phones were 10 years ago. Now it's not even more than the Apollo program. It's probably more than, Soyuz after Apollo. So I think that the keys are innovative engineering practices, massive computing ability, material sciences, knowledge of material sciences, the interdisciplinary sharing of information. We have ability for a biologist to see what a chemist is doing and vice versa. And we have these massive sources of information and ability to go through that information in a very timely fashion. So I think that we're not going to bend physics. We might discover some things that are different than what we knew, but we're certainly things will progress, and we will, I think, be amazed by the progress. Once technical issues are resolved, how can electric aircraft resolve the commercial issue? The Concorde 50 years ago was a technical wonder, but commercially unsuccessful. The Concorde flew at twice the speed of sound. They solved that engineering problem. That was not what got the Concorde. What got the Concorde was it made a ton of noise. The sonic boom did not allow that aircraft to fly over populated areas. And so the routes that aircraft could fly were drastically limited. And so that's probably the biggest reason it failed. There's phenomenal work that has been done about reducing and even getting rid of the sonic boom. If you're in the military and you want to get someplace on the earth really quick and you don't want anybody to find out that you did it, one of the ways to do it is to make your radar signature 0, B, make your sound signature 0. And so there's a lot of work that's being done about reducing sonic boom. So electric aircraft, Robert, I think that technologically, we're always going to have improvements. We're always going to be getting the next best thing, and it's always going to get better. And so, the question is timeline. What's the best way of obtaining funding for the research? NASA EV planes. NASA canceled that. What was that thing called? The something 47, the aircraft that they talked to us about. They went in a different direction. I don't know about funding. We have a pretty good research and development academic system in the US and globally, and companies that do research. Does the future lie not in electric jumbo jets, but perhaps micro hubs with vertical takeoff and landing, short takeoff and landing aircraft with battery swap outs and fast charging? Extra time in actual flying and landing time would be compensated for in a more pleasant, less stressed airport and less crowded aircraft. Also, check in at the security would be would take less time. So, something like 20 million people are flying every year on airplanes. 20 million people. It's phenomenal. You're going to have what we talk about it. What's talked about in transportation, I think, is the right vehicle for the right mission. And so you're going to have huge aircraft that carry lots of people between hubs for a long time, and then have smaller vehicles that carry smaller people to their destination. Beta Technologies talks about their network of totally changing because of cost. The cost of their electric aircraft is so much lower than the existing costs of turbine aircraft that are used by FedEx and UPS, these companies that do hub and spoke, that their idea is changing that network altogether to where it's much more point to point from hub and spoke. So, for longer distance flying, could something analogous to current military and air refueling take place with a real charged airplane charging passenger planes? Perhaps too dangerous anyways. Charging electric aircraft, fueling electric aircraft mid-flight. You got to get the fueler out there to where the aircraft that you're going to fuel is fueled. So the military does it because the mission, you could take a tactical aircraft that has relatively short range and extend its mission endurance tremendously by air refuel. The cost is phenomenal to do it. These tankers haul a ton of fuel to go get in position to fuel the other aircraft. So I don't think so. So there's the answers for those questions. Does anybody have any comments about those? Anything to add? Have we heard enough?
I have you heard of anybody done iFly, the parachute, the skydiving? There's several of them around Houston where they simulate by huge fans. You can go in there and actually kind of fly around. There's a company in Austin called Lift Aircraft. You heard about them? Yeah. Lift Aircraft is I'm gonna see if I can bring it up. It's a drone system
for you, since I'm sharing, I think.
Yeah, it's a drone that you get to fly, and they're saying next year, and they get away with that by probably they can take the remote control away from you at any time, and they can.
I got it up if you want to show my.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I am I sharing?
Yeah, you're sharing.
Oh, I need to. How do I?
Share at the bottom.
I did share, no, I didn't.
But and they do it over the lake, or over Lake Austin, I guess. But they're actually, they claim to be building a facility, and and because it's over a lake, and they can control you, and you can't get too far out of their wireless probably, then you get to fly a drone. It's actually only one person.
I
drone.
can't get my bar to disappear. It's blocking me from.
Yeah. Okay. I'll see if I can bring it up. It's a.
When he brings it up, this is a company I followed, Lyft also. It's going to be fun for it. It certainly will have applications, but that aircraft is an example of the disc that is made to lift you up and down, but is inefficient to move you at speed. You have to tilt that entire disc. Did you get it? Oh, you're almost there. So it's a disc. It's a bunch of rotors in a structure, and it lifts up.
A bunch of, yeah.
But as you can see, and it's got great redundancy. See how it's just a big disc? So if it wants to move forward, it has to tilt the disc. And when it tilts the disc, it has a negative incidence to that. So you got to increase thrust. But it's
No runway or pilot's license required.
one of
Join the
the,
waitlist. They've been selling rides on this thing. I think I bought rides 10 years ago.
yeah. Yeah. They've got some military contracts.
They do.
The military's flying them. By the way, the military is flying several of these aircraft already. They've bought aircraft from Lyft. They bought from Beta. They bought from Archer is another one. Joby Aviation's another one. Maybe even Lilium, I believe, has got. So there's the military's, it's a it is a very prolific technology developer. The military is. A lot of money goes into technology development. All right. So let me, I want to just bring up a couple of things. Anything else on electric aircraft? Anybody got? See if I can, oh, there you go. You brought me back. Let me get this up. I want to go down here. All right. So just a couple of sites that people might find interesting. If you're interested in buying or selling an EV, there are some sites that are made for electric vehicles. Do I need to make it big or anything, Colin?
Let me do this. Go ahead.
Okay. This is one of them. Findmyelectric.com. You can post a car. That's Mark Clausen's car. You can post a car. They kind of do the intermediary for you. And then, so that's a site. So just the idea that there are sites that allow people to look for EVs only. There's particular to EVs. So if you want to buy an EV from a private party, this company, which Mark also suggested to us, is a really neat idea. So as you all know, there's a tax credit now for used EVs. And one of the requirements is that you have to buy it from a dealer. Well, so the private sellers, can't benefit from that if you're an individual and you're buying from an individual. So there's this company. I think they might not be the only one, but this is the one that Mark sent my way and I know of. Keysavvy.com. they act as an intermediary for somebody that wants to buy an EV from someone. So the the seller and the buyer get an account with them. They pay them, I think it's $79 each, which is really cheap. And they do basically all of the services that a dealer would do, so that you can, as the buyer, you can have all the paperwork that's required for your tax accountant to say that I bought the car from a dealer. And you have to qualify based on your income. The vehicle price has to be a certain level, less than $25,000. You have to, a credit is where you owe at least that much in taxes. So if you owe more than $4,000 in taxes for a previous year, you can take a credit, and that the credit comes off of your owed taxes. So, I'm sorry? So
Instant.
I think it's going to be a rebate. I think it'll be, is that not right? It's going to change to a rebate in 24. Okay.
It happens at the dealer.
Well, this is just like, from what I reading through it, it was just kind of like a dealer. But they are a dealer. They are a dealer, and they'll guide you through doing all the stuff. But it's just a way for, folks that are selling their car or buying a car. If you buy a car from a private seller, that you can, and they have a way to protect you. You basically, they take the money, they verify that the money is good. And then once they do that, they tell the seller, okay, deliver the car. If the seller doesn't deliver the car, they give the buyer the money back. It's all in there.
Escrow.
Yeah.
So somebody has posted a total leaf on our Facebook page.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's another place you can post. I know everybody hates Facebook, but just
Not
you
everybody.
can.
You can post your vehicles on the HEVA. All right. And then the last thing I have is that Bill Swan is helping me, and Mark Sullivan are helping me replace the battery in my trailer. Remember the solar trailer for the Taurus? So my LG battery in the trailer had a recall, and so I had to give it back to them because they had a couple of them that caught on fire, and they said, we'd like our battery back and we'll pay you for it. So they did. So I need a battery, so we're putting a battery together. And as many of you know, the challenge in putting together a battery is the cells have to be in a structure that does not let them expand under heat of charging or discharging. If you don't put these prismatic cells in some kind of constraint, they will expand and they will get damaged. And then of course you got to have some kind of a housing to protect the battery from damage, the BMS boards, and also the people around the battery. So we're kind of working on that. Yeah.
So, as Kevin indicated, Mark Sullivan has developed it. It's 16 at 24 volts. The circuit board that it has enough copper on it to provide the path, the interconnects between the cells, the series connection between all the cells, and the BMS lives on that circuit board on the top, and the work I'm doing, Kevin doing, is just to add plates and tie rods that compress, as Kevin indicated, the cells, and prevent them from growing. And I have to say, I have some lithium cells in my container outside, and this is about 2/3 the cost of what I paid for those lithium cells. And I think it's fairly unique in the sense that the BMS lives on that circuit board that connects all the cells together. And this may be a trend in the industry.
If you look at OEM batteries, I mean, the packaging is phenomenal. You know, the structure that the batteries sit in, they're not really built to be taken apart. They've got thermal management and they're designed to, well, in an EV, you've got to keep them from coming apart, moving around. So they're glued, they're all glued together, and John knows all about that. So anyways, that is all I have. It's 8:34. I hope that you guys learned a little bit about electric aircraft. It'll be fun to watch, participate in watching. And
Thank you, Kevin.
that's all I have.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Good presentation.
All right. So we're ending.